welcome to another edition of the Spyder's Web, live from the Bucks room. I'm Spyder, and I know I've been out for a while. I've just been trying to figure out when I would come back and what I would talk about. Of course, there's a lot of things to talk about, especially the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Miami Heat. And I kind of told you last time on the last edition of this show that that's what it was going to be. And sure enough, here we go. We're going to talk about how they got Oklahoma City got past San Antonio and how Miami got past Boston. And then I'm going to break down some of these matchups, and I'm going to tell you why I think this team is going to win it all. And we're also going to touch upon the Buccaneers getting Dallas Clark and trading Kellen Winslow. Thank you very much for joining me on the Spyder's Web, live from the Bucks room on YouTube and Facebook. Now, let's get to it. And the Miami Heat, and I kind of told you this, they were going to have trouble with the Boston Celtics. It went 7 games. It looked like the Boston Celtics were going to win the series when they surprisingly had a 3-2 lead. But give credit where credit is due. LeBron James in Game 6 comes out and plays one of his best games of his career, if not the best game of his career. 45 points, 15 rebounds. I mean, the guy was in beast mode. And the Miami Heat pull it out. It was a tough series. Defensively, at some points, they were lackadaisical. I mean, letting Boston get out on the break and not getting back in transition defense, I just don't get it. Sometimes the Miami Heat look like one of the best teams in the NBA, and sometimes they leave me scratching my head. I will tell you this, at some points in this series, the Miami Heat were 1 for 11 in the fourth quarter with 24 seconds to go. I told you this. They're going to have a problem when it comes down to crunch time. Who's going to hit that big shot? And I'm still not convinced of who it's going to be. Is it going to be Wade? Is it going to be LeBron James? It's not going to be Chris Bosh because the coach doesn't want to play him because he doesn't think it's fair to him. But I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna go easy tonight on Dwayne Wade and LeBron James because I think this comes down to coaching. I think the coach may be over his head. I think maybe the coach doesn't know how to design plays for these players. And I think that could be one of the things that holds back the Miami Heat from winning a championship. But give credit where credit is due again. LeBron James comes out, plays a hell of a series. He's had a hell of a year. And the Miami Heat move on to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're down 2-0 to the San Antonio Spurs. I can't believe that they got down so far to this team, but give credit where credit is due again. The San Antonio Spurs played out of their mind. This is a veteran team. Tony Parker, I should say, played unbelievable the first 2 games. And then something happened. The lights turned on for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They started to play defense. They started to come out and pass the ball. They actually took a page out of the Spurs playbook by trying to pass the ball instead of play isolation. And let me just explain this, okay? The NBA today is too much isolation. There's too many guys trying to go one-on-one. The great teams in the NBA, the Dallas Mavericks last year, they didn't do a lot of isolation. They didn't have a lot of isolation. They had a great team. They had great passing. The San Antonio Spurs throughout the 2000s were able to pass the ball and make their team better. You can't get into this isolation mode where you go one-on-one because you make it easier for defensive teams to defend you. So the Oklahoma City Thunder made an adjustment. They started to play great defense. And Kevin Durant, who's been a monster throughout these playoffs, came up big again in this series. So, and I'll tell you what, another big thing with the Oklahoma City Thunder that I think is going to play to an advantage for them in this series, not only in last series with the San Antonio Spurs, but against the Miami Heat, I think they have the experience. I think they've been there. I think the last couple of years when they lost to the Mavericks, when they lost to the Lakers, they learned. They learned how to play as a team. And they basically grew up before our eyes, especially in this Spurs series. They have Derek Fisher. They have Perkins. They have plenty of playoff experience. Good for them to get past the San Antonio Spurs. I didn't really give the Spurs that much credit, but they played a hell of a series. Now, first and foremost, some of the important things in the series with the Miami Heat and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it's very easy. I think for the Miami Heat, LeBron James has to come out and he has to be in beast mode again. I mean, that Game 6 was unbelievable. Probably the best game of his life. He has to come out and have games like that. He can't be scared to take the fourth quarter shot. When it's crunch time, he has to come out and play. Wade, they have to get more out of Wade. Okay, that's one big thing. Same thing goes for Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, the Thunder have to get good games out of Kevin Durant. He has to be one of the best players in the NBA and this finals. And it's going to be interesting because Miami is a really good defensive team, especially during the playoffs and during the season. So it's going to be an interesting series. I think the advantage for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I mentioned this before, I think they have the experience factor. They have Derek Fisher, who's been there with the LA Lakers. They have Perkins, who's been there with the Boston Celtics. They have these guys, these gritty veterans that have been there when their teams were in the finals. So, again, I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder the last couple years has learned something. They've learned how to play winning basketball. And I think if they can take some of that stuff from the Spurs series where they're distributing the ball to each separate player, I think they're going to be fine. And getting back to the San Antonio series, Serge Ibaka turned into Kevin Garnett at some point. I mean, they're big men. Serge Ibaka and Perkins, I believe, were like 19 for 26. Okay, that I don't expect that every night, but if you're getting that kind of production from your bench and from your big guys, I think that's an advantage. And that leads me to my next point. Chris Bosh, what is his health going to be like? Is he going to be healthy for this series? He has to give you something, and the reason why he has to give you something is he takes the pressure, he makes your team better. If you have to come out and defend this guy, it gives more spacing to those players, like James, like Wade, so you need him healthy. If he's not effective in this series, then you have to depend on the likes of Udonis Haslem, who's done nothing. You have to depend on the likes of Joel Anthony, who's done nothing. So if Bosh is hurt in this series, then I think the Miami Heat are in trouble. And again, going back to my point with their defense, they're one of the best defensive teams in the league this year. But if they come out and have an effort like they did in some points of that Boston series where they're not getting back on transition, it's going to be a long series, guys, because I'm going to tell you right now, people really think that the Miami Heat are better in transition than the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm here to tell you, I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are better in transition. With Westbrook leading the break, you have Harden, and you have Kevin Durant. I think they're one of the best teams in transition. So, if the Miami Heat try to come out and have a lackadaisical effort versus the Thunder, then I think it could be a long series. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder win this series in 6 games. I think, again, they're a team of destiny. They played the Mavericks this year. They swept them. They played the Lakers. They beat them. They played in the past couple of years. They learned from experience. They have all the experience they need. And to me, they have the best player in the league. That's not LeBron James. That's Kevin Durant. Because simply, he is a clutch player that has shown in the past, okay, in this playoffs, that he can hit a clutch shot. And that's why I think the Oklahoma City Thunder win. I think that big three, that's the big three you should pay attention to. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Brian Westbrook is a football player. Russell Westbrook would be their guard, and James Harden. I think all those players right there, that's the big three you should really look out for. So, I would see right now the Oklahoma City Thunder winning this series in 6 games. But again, I think if you're an NBA fan, this is exactly what you wanted. The stars are going to be out. It's going to be a pretty good defensive series, but I think both of these teams when they get out and run and they're in transition, I mean, this is fun. This is going to be a fun series. But again, I favor the Oklahoma City Thunder in 6 games. Another thing that we didn't really touch upon, because we're going to get off the NBA right now. We're going to go to football with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They trade Kellen Winslow for Dallas Clark. I'm going to tell you real quick what I think about this. I think Dallas Clark is an upgrade over Kellen Winslow because I think he's a team guy. I don't think Kellen Winslow was ever a team guy. I don't think it was ever going to work in the Greg Schiano era here. I think also if you look back with last year's statistics, yes, he was a warrior. Yes, he fought through a lot of injuries, but 10 of Josh Freeman's interceptions last year were because of Kellen Winslow. Now, whether he was not open or if that was Josh Freeman's fault, if that was Kellen Winslow's fault, I think it was sort of Kellen Winslow's fault because if you have a guy that's always telling your quarterback to throw me the ball, and he's not open, I think that can cause some dissension in your team. And what I mean by that is Josh Freeman's talent with Kellen Winslow, I don't think it was ever going to work out. I don't think Josh Freeman is ever going to reach that pinnacle of being a great quarterback if he has a receiver that's constantly calling for the ball. Okay? I think it's going to ruin his confidence. I think it ruined his confidence, and I think it's a breath of fresh air to get a guy like Dallas Clark. Now, here's the cons to it. Dallas Clark hasn't been able to come through and play through 2 full seasons. He's been injured those 2 seasons. So if Dallas Clark can come back and be the player that he was in Indianapolis, and that's saying a lot, guys, because Peyton Manning was his quarterback there, then I think it's a hell of a pickup. Now, as a blocker, he's not a great blocker, but he's another weapon that you add to this offense and could make Josh Freeman a better quarterback overall. So that's my take. It's a little bit short tonight. This is the Spyder's Web. More takes, more issues that we have to talk about, but I want to kind of keep it short this time because I want you to enjoy the NBA playoffs, enjoy the NBA finals, and tell me what you think. Do you think the Oklahoma City Thunder is going to win this series, or do you think it's the Miami Heat's time with LeBron James and Mr. Wade? And what do you think about the moves with the Buccaneers? Trading Kellen Winslow isn't an upgrade. I'm not sure about if it's an upgrade. Kellen Winslow's an upgrade over Dallas Clark. You tell me what you think. This has been the Spyder's Web, and I'm out.